So I was sitting in front of the window, and we were aware that there was a bomb alert in the town because people had come in and said to us. But as per, you just didn't think anything of it. You just thought everybody's away and there had been false alarms, etc. And I was just sitting down, and then all of a sudden there was an almighty bang, and the force of the blast came in through the window and kind of pushed me forward a bit, just made me duck my head. And one of my colleagues was with me. She was worrying a wee bit because her sister was working in a shop up the town, and I says, look, don't worry, it's up the town somewhere. They know it's just a controlled explosion. Don't worry about it, it's just a controlled explosion. And then we realised then that it was a catastrophe, it was a disaster. I went to school down in Strabane, the grammar at the head of the town, when you were travelling through a nationalist area in the bus every day, you'd have got stoned. I mean, I had glass in my hair from being stoned, and the time there were funerals up at the head of the town, we had police and army all around the school, and we were all gathered together in the assembly room because there was a fear at the time that something would happen. It was just something we grew up and you're used to. You didn't think anything of it, That we realised then that there was something. It was just chaotic, really. The building supervisor here, Eddie, his son came in, he had been injured, and Eddie took him out to the hospital. And because I kind of came down after the fact, after people had already come in, so I had missed out on some things that Eddie's son had come in, and people running, milling about, families looking for one another, seeing if they could get the phone to ring home or find out where people were. And then, of course, the phones, you couldn't get through anywhere to anyone. One thing that did stick out for me was that there were a couple in and they just paid absolutely no attention at all to whatever was happening. And it's something that had struck me, so that when the police were questioning us later on, about the events of the day and what you see, that's something I'd mentioned. But, I mean, it was perfectly innocent. It was just, again, I presume that either A, they didn't hear it or weren't thinking anything much of it. The decision then was made that we would just close the library early. So we closed up and went home. Any children that were there, the parents had thankfully found them then, and I drove home and said to my mum, and we were all ringing round everybody because anybody could have been in the town that day shopping, so everybody was touching base with family and friends. Where are they? Do you know where they are? They're safe, they're sound, and all the rest. And my mum then decided, because my granny was in Omagh Hospital at the time, she was actually listed as one of the wounded in one of the newspaper reports, just purely because she was in the ward. She went up to just visit as normal and just to see that it all was okay, and her and my aunt were there and they helped make tea and that, because the nurses were just that busy, And there was a wee Spanish student, I think, in the bed beside granny at the time. My fiance's sister, Esther, was killed in the bomb. After the bomb had went off, I had rang Robert just to say, look, I'm working, but I'm okay, and Claire's okay, and like that. At that stage, it did not realise exactly what had happened, and when I got home, then he rang me later on to say that Esther was missing. She had headed down to the town to do a few messages and errands, and they couldn't get her. And I says, don't worry about it, worst case scenario, she's got knocked out and is lying unconscious, maybe in a hospital or somewhere. But they headed off to look, and they found her car in Dunn's car park. And they were just, all of them, busy looking for her, and there's nothing I could do. I mean, there's no point in me going up because there's so many in that family. They had enough. And went to bed, didn't really sleep because we were just waiting. My sister had driven up from Dublin. She was ringing about it. She drove up from Dublin just to come home. She actually brought a friend up. Her friend's brother had went to the town and was missing, and they couldn't find him. He was okay, but she brought her up, while they were waiting. And I think it was after 12 o'clock. I don't know what time the phone rang. And it was word then just to confirm that Esther was amongst the dead. So my brother and sister took me up and just went up to the home, and they were all there.